Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another scene set in A Death of the Dark Crusade, Season 2. This fine evening, as the city continues its lumbering descent into ruin, a small, rather significant meeting of Assamites has been called, as to which Hakeem himself has been invited as a ranking member of the clan, taking place within the Jewish quarter. A meeting to be held within probably the largest synagogue in the city. Actually, the one that the Sedglukes besieged almost 100 years ago. Since been renovated and expanded upon after it was initially attacked. It's one of the older buildings in the city, in fact. It stood for at least a century. Probably about 120, 130 at this point. It's very old. But only looks as if it's been only looks as if it's been around for 50 or so years. Fairly well maintained and yeah, well kept. And yeah, the view is quite something. The meeting itself is fairly informal in the sense that everyone's just kind of sitting or standing on like the front, or standing in front of the front pews, or just sitting down on them. For Primogen, standing on the platform. But normally there would be a rabbi instead, using it as a means to effectively be speaker for this little meeting. And that is how you arrive, as everyone's basically setting up. Kind of standing towards the front, you see these four individuals.
That is cool, and I am invisible.
The guy with the scar on his face. All of these people, their skin looks very dark, as if your clan curse has begun to have an effect on them. However, the one in the top, in my top left corner, I think it might be reflected to you, in the kind of grayish black veil, yellow eyes. His skin is has not darkened nearly as much, which suggests that he's quite a bit younger than the rest of people here.
With that, Hakeem will first, quite fastidiously before getting here, will go through a whole regimen of self-purification. He doesn't need to, but he does the extra. He's very meticulous, very clean as he begins his regimen hours before he's actually supposed to be here. And he will actually go out a little extra to make himself look presentable. A little extra. Probably the stuff that he should be selling, he's actually taken for himself. So he is present with his silk, with his silk garbs and things as he makes his way. Walking in, he will see the individuals. pay proper respect and take a seat.
As you walk up to them, they kind of all face to turn you as a collective.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, not having seen too much of you before, you probably recognize at least one of these individuals. However, the guy on the overlay represented as having a rather bloodied knife. You have seen him around the rack before.
Mm-hmm.
He is known to be one of the hounds for the sheriff. His name is Mustafa. You probably haven't talked to him too much, but you would know that he's a warrior of your clan, and a rather potent one. Got a bit of
Mm-hmm.
a um,
Reputation.
got a bit of a reputation, yeah. Not for thug-like behavior. In fact, uh, he's quite disciplined. Um, Known for being quite regimented, but not rigid. Quite, I guess, a very effective soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Knows how to follow orders, but is also quite adaptable. Um, the other three you probably haven't seen too much of. They tend to keep to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
None of them have actually been at the Elysium.
Question. Hakeem is well over 100 years old. How much of a darkening is that?
Let me just look it up for you because I think it's only actually covered in Lore of the Clans. So I'll just quickly go to that. Uh, yeah, the Curse of Growing Darkness. All right. For after about a century,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it says someone of your ethnicity would look quite dusky.
Okay.
Not enough to look distinctly unnatural or cause issues with mortals.
Mm-hmm.
Give it about a century and a half,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it is begun. Yeah, to those in the know, it has begun. It's recognizable to those who are aware of your clan weakness at this point. It's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
tell, but it's not enough to derail conversation. Same goes for pretty much everyone here, apart from the Primogen, whose skin does look distinctly unnatural.
Mm-hmm. With that, Hakeem will politely take a seat. Unless any of them seem to be like they're in a talking mood.
Um, yeah, perhaps the most well dressed person in the room next to you. Um, this fair looking woman in my top left corner, again, if it's
Mm.
reflective for you, will walk up to you and kind of do like a little bow because you're sitting down and we're all clanmates here, and
He'll
sit.
get up, like it's proper respect.
Hello, I do not believe we've met before.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Hakeem Halshaya. Nice to meet you. Assalamu alaikum is a general, it's a greeting. It basically means, may, he's reading the greetings of God or greetings of Islam. So may the peace of Islam be with you. Basically what he said.
Yep, I am. I am dumb and sad.
It's okay.
She'll do the same thing.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. I assumed it was some sort of greeting, but yeah.
Mm.
Good to know for the future. I'll be sure to abuse this tidbit, and when people ask me to go on further, I will. I'll immediately start looking on Google Translate. But yeah, she says much the same, and he says, "I am Statira, a sorcerer caste."
Myself as well.
Well, fascinating. We'll have so much to discuss.
Indeed.
There is an elder of ours within the city, but she tends to keep to herself. I don't think she'll be attending tonight.
Who is she, just in case words or names are dropped in a public setting?
She is Lissa. I believe she was at the Elysium prior to this one. Wasn't there very long. She is my sire.
I see. So, from your perspective, how do you think the clan is faring?
She considers this for a moment. It appears you arrived at a bad time. One of our own has actually gone missing. The court has sent a coterie to investigate.
Mm.
It was the same one that destroyed a rogue Tismisi domain breacher, but I'm not exactly sold on their reliability.
I see. It's unfortunate.
Yes, her name was Hebony, was the grandchild of a primogen. I believe it's most likely to be discussed here tonight. But
Okay.
as for the treaty in place, she kind of, her eyes divert away from you in a fashion that would indicate frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why we are locked in place how we are, but I can't say I agree with it.
I share your frustration. However, I think it's something that is going to work itself out in the very near future.
From the looks of things, considering an army has just decided to stretch its legs on Salubri domain, not exactly the most subtle show of force.
Mm.
I think we'll have no choice but to abandon the warriors. They've been trigger happy since they got here. She wouldn't say trigger happy. They're crossbow trigger happy. She would say they're far too bloodthirsty.
Mm-hmm.
I was here when they first came here during the 1170s.
See.
They started destroying any Cainite they came across. Anyone that seemed complicit was a target. But they're too easy to bait out. They'll be the death of us. Doesn't help that they seem content to throw crusade after us. As an Asmite, you'd be aware that's a pretty major point of contention between those two clans.
Yep.
One of the reasons why the Assamites didn't help when they had that is because he kept trying to kill our peoples, and we don't like that.
He looks as if he wants to say something in their defense, but she brings up that point, and it's just like, all right, you're right, and I'll just concede the point. Like, but I think if Has anyone tried to parley with them or to express a concern? I'm new and very much so curious of how things work here in Odessa, at least from your perspective.
Well, the healers of their clan seem as concerned as we are. They seem to be deeply divided on the matter, but the warriors don't seem to be up for a conversation. Their Primogen is, well, he is the oldest, and as the first tradition dictates, but he is too eager for conflict. It took both our clan and half of his own to convince him to stand down in the first place. All he really needs is all he needs is a significant provocation, an excuse. Still, I suppose the fact that the treaty has been holding this long is more than most of our civilization can ask for.
I see.
I just don't know why they tend in any fashion to the usurpers. They could have abandoned them when the treaty was formed. It wouldn't have been very difficult. The Magisters and the Cappadocians had all the leverage they needed. I don't understand why they didn't just let them go. But I suppose we should tend to the concern of our missing clanmate first.
Indeed.
From what I hear, Toreador went missing around the same time.
Who?
A neonate, I can't remember his name. Some aristocrat. I never met him or knew him. But our concern is our own. And how to deal with the usurpers at this point, if nothing else. The warriors might be able to provide us with cover to do something.
I hope as much.
As for the Dismisi, I'm not sure if they're more concerned with the Ventru or the usurpers. They seem ready to go at both, but too afraid to leave their own domains. Though perhaps I can't be too judgmental, they hold very little sway here. They are very far from home. Meanwhile, the kind of masked lady just seems to be like she's standing up and doesn't really seem to be paying too much attention to this conversation. Or rather, actually, that's not really true. She's not looking at you, and she's obviously paying attention to other things that are happening. She's engaged with Mustafa, but she's clearly keeping an eye on this conversation. She's just not.
She's just not giving it her 100% attention.
Yeah. She kind of has her ear out for what all of you are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Primogen just seems to be waiting for everyone to kind of finish what they're doing. He seems content to wait.
Okay. I'm sure we can talk later. However, I don't wish to keep our Primogen waiting.
More than fair. She'll turn to look back at him and just say, "We should probably be starting soon anyway. You'll probably introduce all of us to you." But it was nice to meet you. Hopefully we can talk afterwards if you don't have anything else you're doing.
There's an engagement I have to, but the next night I'm more than willing to have a very longer, in-depth conversation with you.
Oh, I'd love that. Maybe I'll be able to introduce you to Lissa as well.
That would make me most excited.
And she'll just take a seat, probably next to you, and the warriors seem to trail off in their own conversation, and just eventually it comes to an end, although they remain standing. The masked woman looking quite formidable in her posture. Mustafa seems a little bit more relaxed. There's something of like a very kind of not paranoid but very cautious look in the eye of this woman. And the guy who has this scar across his face, this more fair-skinned Assamite, seems to just be off on his own in a corner, kind of off to the side, like at the side of the Primogen's podium, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And he seems to have a very grim look on his face. Well, it's kind of hard to gauge him, considering that most of his face is veiled, but he doesn't look like a happy man. I mean, the warriors seem, a bit imposing, but still seemingly like they're in good company.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Statira is quite lax of you, but this man looks quite grim indeed. Almost upset, you could say, angry. The Primogen will see that everyone is kind of stopped. Welcome, brothers and sisters. If I may call this meeting a duel. As it appears, the venture and seems to desire to antagonize our Salubi brethren. And in light of recent events involving our own clan, it is time for us to begin discussing a course of action. Before we do, however, I would like to bring attention to our newest comrade in arms. And he'll gesture towards you.
Hakeem will slightly rise, bow, and then take a seat.
Welcome to our city. I regret not being able to give you a warmer welcome.
What time you can give is enough for me.
You are of the blood, I will give all that I can. Yes. Over the last few months, there have been radical policy changes within the court, realignments, and moves are beginning to be made. The Assamites of the city Amida have seen fit to align themselves with the La Sombra. They have also approached us here, seeking a separate new alliance. Against the Ventral. They are of the belief that the Salubri and the Ventral are going to and he stops for a moment as if to filter through his words. Provoke another conflict, which will engulf the city again. And I would wish for one of these clans to be removed before they have a chance to cause more bloodshed than necessary. In exchange, they are willing to offer support of their own, being that they control the vast majority of the city's court. They have offered to uplift us to a greater state of status within the local region. And not just within Odessa. However, before I or anyone else moves forward, I would like to hear questions. Any that you may have regarding this proposal of theirs. For reference, out of character, Amida is the city. It's actually referred to as Amida. Amida is the English variation, but Amida is like far to the northeast of Odessa. And Mardin and Nizibin are also Assamite cities. Kind of well away from a lot of the conflicts in the region, in what is known as the county of Odessa.
Gotcha.
I'm actually just getting up other things for you to let you know for stuff. You would know as this is an Assamite domain. You would know a couple things. It's largely it doesn't lie along the Silk Road, so it's not an economic powerhouse. It's largely basically it's effectively a military checkpoint, is what it is. It's not there to make a lot of money. It's there to defend the Ibuid dynasty from further assaults. It did recently go a brief economic boom, but that has ended with the end of the Fourth Crusade. Its economy is expected to drop and stabilize again. But more importantly, on the Cainite side of things, Its prince is actually a rather old Assamite sorcerer with a warrior sheriff. They also had an Assamite seneschal, a vizier, but he was actually executed in the domain recently for acting against the court. The city itself has no scourge. The sheriff has a reputation for being able to do both at the same time. The only actual the only members they recently only had one member of the court outside of the Assamites, who was a gangrel. He was called Wasim. But they've recently actually added a Ventru to their midst as the local harpy. In fact, the harpy of Amida actually moved out of the city not too long ago, just a few months ago, and actually moved to the Sombra domain of Timurin. And the Ventru took his place. But you know that any Ventru who comes this way is either a deep cover agent or someone who is basically effectively against their own clan. Clans who support the Tremere don't really survive out that far for very long. That is, Amida is very hard Assamite domain. It's quite close to Alamut. It is a very heavily controlled Assamite area. If you're outside of the Assamite Stare and you're able to live there, and you're from a clan that supports usurpers, you've probably sold out to the Assamites. But yeah, the prince himself is also fairly united against the Tremere. It's not just in Assamite, but in other clans. And interestingly, the Tasmisi also. But they're very weak this far out east. But that's sort of the geographic perspective for you. As for the other cities on this little thing, you would know that Gaga is a Ventru-held domain. Talgoron is Assamite as well. No, I believe. Let me just double check for you. Damn it. Yeah. You'd also know that Antioch, Haran, Tabessel, and Beira are all Ventru domains. Beira recently turned. It's been a Ventru domain for about a month. It was recently a Toreador domain, and it fell. Presumably collapsed to members of his own court. The Cappadocians hold Marak, Sis, and Samosate. La Sombra holds Sarouge, Alep, and Timurin. And the sole Nosferatu domain in the area is Malatia. A remnant of, considering you're an Ancilla, you'd know that 100 years ago, the Nosferatu basically overthrew the La Sombra, who held the princedom of Jerusalem and its surrounding baronies, of which Edessa was a part of it. About 4.5 decades later, they collapsed, and La Sombra retook control. Malatia is effectively a remnant domain of that old empire. Let's see, yeah. Just so you know where all the domains are, because you live here.
Cool.
And yeah, but Amida is basically is, by the Primogen's word, is said to have aligned itself with the La Sombra, Decim La Sombra. And, or maybe even regional, considering that the Harpy seems to have moved. Would be a very apt guess. And they're offering status and kind of uplifting kind of concessions in exchange for effectively military support. But yeah, he'll see if anyone has any questions first. Because he seems to want to put it to you guys.
Hakeem will, as a point, he will say that the Toyota ancilla known as Johanna has recently entered into his debt. She is indebted to him, and should the clan need anything, he's more than happy to be more forceful with the repayment of said things owed.
Another thing we seem to have in common with La Sombra, then, I believe she is also heavily indebted to them. In which case, we may be able to have them burn through their debts rather than your own first.
He nods.
If we are both working towards the same ends. The Toreador of this region support the usurpers, unfortunately. A shame, but it is what it is. However, if they become indebted to us, then they're saying the matter will be likely void. She is an ancestor of their clan. We could use this to acquire information on their own plans. In doing so, we could pick up information on what the Venture and the usurpers desire. They'll almost certainly keep information away from her, but not necessarily the rest of her clan, who will no doubt leak something to her. She still seems to talk to her Primogen and that Margot. He speaks of Margot rather grimly, as if there's something there that he doesn't like.
Perception, empathy?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Oh,
Nice.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely... It's not just the fact that she's Toreador. In fact, the way he talks about the Toreador seems fairly neutral, as in, it's a shame they're on the wrong side of history, sort of thing. But when he talks about her, it's like as if the name is almost poisonous. He speaks of it with some degree of venom, as if she has done or said something to gravely offend him.
I don't believe that's a public conversation, so he'll let it drop.
She's also she also has close ties to another usurper. I believe his name is Aldrich.
Let's see.
Unfortunately, it appears Many of Johanna's blue-blooded friends have cut off contact with her. Most likely out of fear for the dead shields, for the Somber, and now you.
Hmm.
I will be completely frank with all of you. This proposal to me seems like an apt choice to take. We're able to remove ourselves from the less worthy, attaching ourselves to a greater power, and also enabling us to break the treaty without actually breaking our word.
How does it look like everybody has received this? Sort of like a cursory glance.
The Statara seems a bit on the fence for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Mustafa seems to be in thought about the issue. The masked woman seems to be in agreement. You swear there is a sort of slick, vicious-looking smile underneath that mask. The Scott Manhava seems to be seems to be having trouble maintaining focus. It's almost as if he seems frustrated, as if this conversation is continuing. He doesn't really he doesn't really seem to it doesn't really seem to be pleased with events for some reason. But he seems to have looked frustrated this whole time. He will actually speak up, and he will simply say, "This city already has a scourge, already has a sheriff, has a seneschal. What will be left?" There is no title for us to take. Nothing to call our own. Wouldn't we simply be on the strings of the La Sombra, uplifted at their whims rather than our own? He says this to kind of everyone, including the Primogen. Says it in a very dark tone.
Hakeem remains quiet. He's too new to have like a really open opinion about what's being said.
The city lacks harpies. And even if that weren't the case, we are still a prominent power within the region. You don't have to travel far east until all domains are ruled by Assamites. This place is a border between the La Sombra Empire and our own. They do, in theory, have the power to remove us if they committed all of their force to doing so, but we must remember They are not honorable, they are pragmatic. They will do what is in their best interests over the long term. They could only remove us temporarily, and then everything they've already been building up to would be wasted. Besides, the status quo does nothing towards our greater goals of removing the usurpers or the clans who have forsaken their blood ties. Their responsibilities and duties. The kind of younger neonate falls back into silence, but still looks very frustrated. One does not need a title to be relevant. The city will bend to those who can shape it. That is the Sombra Credo. If they're not the most powerful, then they will follow those who are. This relationship that has been proposed, at least for the moment, seems mutually beneficial. But, as I said, I have great bias in the matter, and I do not wish to append my own clan on the issue. So if there are any who wish to reject this proposal, who do not wish for the clan to be a part of it, you are more than free to say so.
Looking over at the what's his name? Um, the uh the the one with the yellow eyes.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. What would you? What's your vision? What do you see that you feel so passionately about?
My sire is missing. They have sent fledglings to deal with it. That isn't exactly a show of good faith from the clan who's purported to have power.
You seem to have an idea. What's your idea? What would you like to do?
As my elder states, we need to find a way to dislodge ourselves from this alliance, but I don't think our true enemies right now are the usurpers. It's the one who exploited the conflict between them.
Would I be old enough to know who that is?
Yeah, it's the three clans that are running the city: Losombra, Cappadocians, and Bruja.
Gotcha.
That's the third alliance, and it's the one that's running the city because they basically when and you would know this is common knowledge. So on a timeline, when the Cappadocian prince took control, fighting between these clans continued. The Losombra and Cappadocians told them to stop, and when they didn't, the Bruja basically 24 hours later, the Bruja basically wiped out every K-Knight at the next battle to take place after they were told to stop and didn't. And then about half of the forces on each side were basically captured and staked en masse and held at Elysium, and then for the other half of those forces that remained, the prince basically told them, "You're going to cooperate, or we're just going to wipe out 50% of all of your forces." Literally, rows of staked Cainites were held, were literally being hung like banners at Elysium.
Take what you need with fire and blood, indeed.
Literally, like 20, about 24 more Cainites. There are like 20, like there are 20 to 40 Cainites, like literally staked, hanging from the Elysium walls. One of the nicknames for the prince is the Hanging Prince for that very event.
Oh my. So with that, you will see Hakeem sort of nod his head, and all right. Do you have something of her possession that you wouldn't mind parting with?
She has a haven. I can take you there. I call it tried. He kind of mutters under his breath. I tried contacting Alyssa.
Okay. Well, it's time, I suppose, that we set fire to the proverbial seat. Hakeem will just flatly say. But I do agree with Alden.
He looks at you as if he expected this. He seems like a neonate who knows how things work.
Mm-hmm.
The older guy's called the shots. He has to just sit there and take it. At least he got a chance to disagree this time. That was nice.
Yeah. The little guys just want to be heard, so he was just like, all right, so what's your plan? Like,
the status quo just it needs to change. I agree, but I don't. Le Sombre about are as dangerous as they are powerful in the area. They see an opportunity to seize power, they'll take it. At a minimum, we'll have our head over our shoulders. While I do envision this alliance benefiting us, you are quite correct. The Sombra are not trustworthy. But many of them also have a vested interest in defending the faith here. Seems to be a matter of division for them. But as you say, yes, if there is no further opposition, we can table this here, and we can move on to the matter of our kidnapped clanmate. Hakeem, you asked for our possession.
yes.
Are you capable of scrying?
This is why I asked.
I'm afraid I cannot. It is beyond my capacity. I specialize in other areas. This I can, but well, she has seldom around.
Don't trouble your side with such a thing. I can do it.
OC, do you actually have scrying as a ritual?
Yeah, I was waiting for the last dot, and it just has to get approved by you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll settle that after C then.
Okay.
If we can scribe, then we can most likely find her. The Lasombra have turned up results of this coterie. From the looks of things, it appears she has been kidnapped by hunters. Not destroyed, which I find curious. The yeah, it backs up. Do we know where she is? We know where the hunters are, but they've most likely stored their prize somewhere else, if they have any common sense. The fact that they have captured two Canaanites should suggest that they would be wise enough to do so. But this is the problem. We know where the hunters are, but not our clanmate, and our clanmate is what matters. And we could avoid owing this coterie over the Sombra any favors if we got to them first. Then why won't Lissa do something about it?
Hakeem honestly looks lost for words. I don't know why the elder didn't do what the thing to do.
That is a nuanced and complex issue that relates to the greater operations of the clan at large. Not something to be discussed tonight. If she was around to do so, she would do so, but she is not. As you are well aware, she comes and goes. Doesn't really ease the neonate's concerns.
Hakeem will speak if it's like a time has like actually gone, and he'll say that trust in your brothers. We want to see her back just as much as you do.
He seems to nod and just like, yeah, he kind of like the okay, fine, sort of like I admit it, like you're right there. Sort of like
Understand that it's uncomfortable, and that it is pushing you to places that you wish not go. However, do not let your emotions be so easily ridden. This is the point where your sire should see you shine, not fumble.
speaking of fumbling. Spree of murders in the Toreador domain. I've been looking into them from afar. The clergy may be onto something. We'll need to look into that later. He says, looking at kind of the sorcerers and the warriors in the room, not really any of them, not the Primogen. Who's a vizier. Not really equipped to deal with such matters.
Hakeem just assigned himself something on his plate. His partying card for tonight seems to be all filled. Can't take on any more projects. Like,
if you can scry her, then it should be no issue to us. We should be able to, or should at least be able to spy on the area where she's being kept within.
would the warriors be able to go and retrieve her without much of a
Depends
need for
on
an expert coterie, in a sense?
depends on how much information your scrying retrieves for us. If it is just a dark, dank room that you're looking at, then we won't know where that place is. But if there is a significant landmark or place of identity that we can pick up from it, then we'll be able to locate her. That said, scrying is not the only avenue. These hunters no doubt know where she is, if the worst has not already occurred. The court is already giving this culture additional resources of which to attack the hunters and remove them from the domain permanently. They'll no doubt try to capture one. If we could get there first, it would be preferable. But if your scrying sidesteps this issue, then it is no problem. But time is of the essence. We want to move quickly.
Hakeem nods in agreement.
And then that is all. It looks like we have little left to discuss. No, there is one other matter. Relating to our alliance with La Sombra, members of the court, the prince, the sheriff, and the seneschal. I do not know of the scourge due to his.
Hakeem will speak up.
Yep.
The scourge goes by the name of I don't want to mispronounce his name, but
oh no, he knows his name. He just says, "I do not know much of him on the matter due to his newness."
oh, Hakeem will just start giving information about how he is, his brashness,
Yep.
and gosh, that he's a Ravnos.
Yes, the Ravnos are strange. They like playing jokes and games.
I think he believes that he has already arrived at the summit, and he does not fear for his position.
The Primogen I'd be more concerned with. She's known to be a powerful prophetess, a seer, and a very, very old Canaanite, almost as old as the prince, if not older. He's most likely being put there as, well, either a sacrifice or the La Sombra have once again pulled their strings. It looks like the pieces are coming together for them. But what I was going to reference was that these members of the court know where the usurper's chantry is. One of the stipulations of the treaty is that they will not tell anyone where it is. However, if it appears that war is upon us, and we have this alliance in place, we will be able to locate it. And then they will have nowhere to hide.
Indeed.
The question then will be, how do we deal with it from there? Because there are multiple avenues. It will no doubt be heavily fortified. They are hostile territory. But that is something you should all keep in mind moving forward. There will be war. That means you'll all be at risk. So do not forget that you are all a part of one clan. Do not fear to rely on each other. But I think with that we can call this meeting there, and I will leave you all to your business. Is there anything else from anyone?
Hakeem shakes his head no. He will quickly bow, excuse himself, and make his way towards actually he will go to the neonate to ask what his time schedule is because the other thing can wait.
Mm-hmm. The Primogen will... I need to roll something for the Primogen real quick. You only have... a second. You should have more than me. What the heck? Okay. This guy got... Oh, shit. The Primogen begins to fade from view until there's only a very faint outline of him as he kind of wanders out of the building and quickly blends into the background so that he becomes more or less invisible.
He nods. Is there, besides the Primogen, is there any more Vizier here?
You know, there's 2 warriors and a sorcerer. You don't know if Anina's a Vizier or not. Oh, there is actually one more guy, yes. I completely forgot about him. You do know this guy, the Vizier. His name is Adol. He's often seen working as a proxy for the Primogen.
If he's around, I'll beg his forgiveness for taking up his time, and I'll ask that does he know what noble family does the Assamites affiliate with?
You're interested in the aristocracy, I see.
Of course. Money flows.
1 second, I'll check. Unfortunately, we've had little luck infiltrating them. The Lasombra have kept a tight grasp on them, and eventually have kicked out anyone else who's gotten close. Although it looks like their grasp is being challenged. I have some contacts there. Not any real sway, but friends who can tell me what's going on.
He'll nod.
I can't tell you which houses are not affiliated at all. I can't tell you which ones have the will pulled over their eyes.
Which one is not affiliated?
Let's see. Well, the Toreador have a few contacts in House Rovshi. They're a group of Venetians, but they don't occupy them. They just use them to get a few hard-to-acquire items here and there. You're not going to be stepping on any toes, I would imagine. They probably have a few lesser of a number among them, but nothing significant. Then you have the Sebestev. They are Russian. Also have a lot of strange pagan traditions. Creeps out the rest of the city, if I'm completely honest. They also have a lot of connections to the Vok, crime group. Very cutthroat mercenaries. Kind of at odds with the Taoa swords. The more established mercenary guild in the area. Then you have let's see, is there anyone else? I think then you've got the Dopian. I'm not aware of anyone invested in them, but that is largely because they don't offer that much. They have always been on the losing side of their conflicts with the Obelian line. Recently had a very large scandal involving an affair that resulted in a lot of fanfare and such. Resulted in someone being kicked out of the family. The ones you want to look out for, though, are Vendôme and Lastors. Those are the Lasombra and Ventral houses. Vendôme is larger, but Lastors controls a lot of the city's military. Took a big hit to their reputation a few decades ago. Lord's grandfather was, well, shall we say, barbaric, even by the standards of the Sebestev. The Vendômes have always been fairly prominent though, but they walk a very thin line. They've managed to somehow bridge something of a piece between the different religious affiliations of the separate houses. They're quite well rounded. They tend to have their fingers in whatever pie you could imagine, but they don't seem to exert particularly strong control over any of them. Alaziz is Cappadocian, that woman who disgraced herself at court, the so-called Lady Astor. She controls that house. And then you have Almaquette, which is jointly controlled by the Seneschal and the Prince. It is the puppet dynasty that the regent is from, that the Saracens put in control when they took over the city.
He'll nod.
You'd probably have a fun time with House Rothschild. A lot of their house actually converted to Islam to save his own neck.
Indeed.
There was a stronger Toreador presence there for a while, but the one involved is left for Antioch. Would be an opportunity for you if you wanted to involve yourself. I certainly wouldn't mind garnering any of the spoils.
He'll smile.
I can't say I can give you an in, but I can support you from the sidelines. I have a few connections to other areas, let's say, that should prove useful. I could just walk in and use presence, but we are not this classist adventure, or no.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I would keep an eye on Rebellion and Montfort, though. Both of them have no Canaanites involving themselves in that area. I can't say who, but I noticed some of their lessers were Gould. So it looks like
House Roshi, is that unaffiliated?
Yes, as I said, a few Toreador goals and workers here and there, but they don't really interfere with the house at large. They just want to get what they can get from their mercantile connections. Roshi controls a vast amount of wealth in the city. They're really only respected for that. They don't have a lot of political connections, despite being here for a century. The war 60 years ago hit them very hard. They've been in a state of recovery ever since. But as they say, money speaks. And people move in response.
Not.
There were a few political marriages arranged to increase their standing. I believe that was what Toreador was working towards. But again, he has since abandoned the pulse, it would seem. I do not know why. He seemed to be making a great deal of progress. Whatever had him move to Antioch must have been either quite compelling or quite frightening.
Indeed.
But yes, it is largely the high clans who like to associate themselves with the noble houses and have been defending them quite viciously ever since.
He'll smile. Or we could just run to prominence. That's always the thing that always happens.
Precisely. I would be more than happy to help you if you have interests in House Rothschild. I have quite a lot of mercantile connections myself, so I do a lot of business with them.
Which one was the house that turned to Islam?
Rothschild. The house lord converted to Islam because he didn't want to die horribly, and more or less. There are several Christian houses. That guy just seemed to have turned because he was in fear of his life.
I mean,
There's not really,
okay,
you don't really know the explicit history behind it, but that's the gist. Either he was scared, or someone actually promised to kill him if he didn't. House Rothschild does not have a sterling reputation as the most pious of noblemen. That would be House Montfort.
Is that control?
No.
Okay.
Abdul did say that there did seem to be someone seemed to have moved in, but he doesn't know. All he knows is that a growing amount of their members seem to be well, actually, only one of their members is called, to be fair.
Okay.
But he did note that they have at least one ghoul among them, among their family.
Mm.
He doesn't do too much business with them, but because they do have some connections, and wealth speaks to the aristocracy. You did notice that at least one of them was gold.
Hakeem will offer one of his ghouls, Raj, and send him as and in talks with this gentleman. With that in mind, there is one pressing question, and I'm surprised no one has pushed this or even brought it up. Um, Elena Danslav. I believe she would be a powerful ally.
Potentially, the Dismisi have undergone a lot of changes in command recently. A lot of their clan have come and gone. You might want to double check with them. I know they had a new fledgling come in recently, made a stir at Elysium by screaming at the Primogen and her lovely. Well, he was supposed to act or do something artistic, and he did the exact opposite. But yes, I'll get back to you. I am something of a spokesperson for our clan. If I suppose you can consider me an unofficial herald for us. So I will double check on your behalf, see who is in and who is not.
All right.
Yeah,
with that, go on, finish your
be
statement.
careful with them. They are awfully territorial, much like the gang rule. But yes, they do not hesitate to strike out at even their own allies if they walk in uninvited.
Nasty business.
They control a small fort outside the city, seems to be their main hunting grounds. It's officially their domain that the prince granted to them, called Zengid's Wall. Now, you being old enough would also recognize that's literally named after the dynasty of Seljuks that attacked and successfully conquered the city. And it was where they initially kind of held camp, and basically a small hamlet built up around that area, and eventually just became a military outpost.
Sweet. With that, Hakeem will politely bow and make his way over to the fledgling. Neonate, sorry.
He's young, but he's not that young. Yeah, he's still around.
And he will, if he's finished with any of his conversations, he will nod. And kind of whenever you're ready.
He'll take you to Habanese Haven. It's kind of common knowledge for Assamites to know where each other live. They're one of the more tightly knit clans. Let me just double that. Let me just take a look at the map for you to see where she'd live. Yeah, she lives on the north end, actually quite close to Abraham's Fountain, which is not it's not a happy place to be in for any Canaanite. No Canaanite actually even lives within Abraham's Fountain to anyone's knowledge, and it's difficult to hunt there. But yeah, she lives quite close to it. It's just a couple, about 2 or 3 blocks down. Just to the kind of southeast of it.
Okay.
She's basically North End Jewish Quarter, quite close to the guild halls, quite close to Abraham's Fountain.
Okay.
Kind of in that little segment, which is like kind of where the kind of Prophet's Quarter, the guild halls, and the Abraham's Fountain all kind of like meet. Quite close to that. And he will allow you into her haven. It's a very well kept house. She has quite a lot of books.
Mhm.
Um, a fair bit of jewelry, but nothing that seems too ostentatious.
Mhm.
Um, and the house itself is quite. It's it's a multi-floored house. Like there's the ground floor and the first floor, and it has a small guest bedroom. It doesn't stand out too much really. What's really notable is the interior, because of the large amount of books and jewelry lying around. But other than that, it's all very tidy.
Mhm.
Um, it's all very well maintained. Um, the neonate also gives his name to you before he forgets. Considering you're going on a walk with him,
Mhm.
um, God damn it, come back. Um, he is known as Jibril.
Mhm.
He's the child of Hebony, who's the neonate who went missing. Um, he's the grandchild of Adul and the great grandchild of the Primogen. Um, he also notes that he's basically been taking care of Hebony's ghouls ever since she's gotten missing. And but Satara hasn't had the means to scry her, and unfortunately, the wandering sorcerer elder never seems to be around when she's needed.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, you're able to. He will note to you that most of the stuff in this building belongs directly to her,
Mhm.
so you can just take one of them. He just asks that you. He just politely asks that you return it once you found her.
He'll take like a piece of jewelry,
Okay.
and he says this is all I need, and he will promptly whatchamacallit, leave.
Yep. Presumably, he will say goodbye and thank you. He's kind of happy that someone seems to care
Mhm.
about his sire. Um,
Before he leaves, there's one thing that he would ask.
shoot.
Um, the one thing I would ask of you, it's a very small thing.
Go on.
Among the younger ones, among the neonates, let them know that I am an ear that they can confide in. That is all.
I will.
And with that, he will make his way to the hole in the wall.
Yeah, so you begin traveling towards the bazaar. The
Mhm.
bazaar itself, it's the hole itself, because you know the shop, you know exactly where to go to. You
Mhm.
you you see this shop basically has an alleyway behind it.
Mhm.
Um, and that is it's basically being repaired. Not at night, but there are a couple of guards around, kind of sticking by the area because obviously, with a hole in the wall being repaired, it's very easy to just walk in and steal stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so the guard presence around this particular little block seems to be a little bit more prevalent, and there is a guard who just kind of stands, kind of watch over this alleyway. Seems like they've sort of adapted to the fact that this is, they need to pay attention to this.
Mhm.
Um,
Hakeem will approach one of the guards.
yeah, you approach one of them. They turn to you in their fairly light studded armor, and they say, good evening, sir. Is there anything we can help you with?"
I would like to pray for this site. Is it okay if it would only be 5 minutes of your time? Is it alright if as he points to the hole, can I stand right there and you can watch me?
He seems a little bit A little bit skeptical, but you say you can watch him, so he says, "Of course, no offense. You are a little bit late. They're already repairing it."
No, it's fine. As he will.
He looks at card. Literally says that in character.
Hakeem just sort of like nods, and the sort of prayer mat that he has, he'll lay out in front of like the hole, and then he'll reach out his hand and yeah, spirits touch.
Okay. You reach out to like touch the building.
Hmm.
Um, they've already taken out most of the brick that was associated with the hole in the wall. So I'm going to say this is going to be quite a high diff because most of what would give you the impression is gone. And a lot of the impressions that fill this wall are very muddled due to the change in ownership and everything that's happening. So it's probably going to be quite a high difficulty roll to figure out what happened here.
Can I have an investigation to see if something that looks a little older?
Um, yeah, it's been a few days. It's been a few days.
Mm,
I'll say wits investigation, but difficulty will be 8 because it's been quite a while now and they've cleaned
no
up most
problem.
of the mess.
So,
There's always going to be some dirt lying around, you know. There's going to be tiny little bits of stone that they don't care about. It's an alleyway, you know.
hmm. May I spend a point of willpower?
Yeah, you can absolutely.
Uh, what the fuck, Hakeem?
Okay, you've wow. Behind some kind of planks of wood and an old crate. You do see some of like a fairly significant, like literally like one fairly something you could fit in your hand. Basically, seems to have flown, kind of bounced
That's
across the
hilarious.
wall, and landed behind the crate, and kind
Mm,
of like was sheltered by this chunk, by this like plank of wood
yeah.
that someone just seems to have like almost definitely put there after the fact. It
Mm,
seems like because it just fell behind the crate, it wasn't exactly an eyesore, and it's in an alleyway, so nobody really seemed to care about it because it wasn't really in wasn't really in the immediate like little cleanup area, like at the entrance and the exit to this hole in the wall.
mm,
Um, yeah, which will substantially reduce the difficulty of this roll because it's actually not a part of the building, so the impressions it will give you will be much more clear. Um, so I'll say this definitely minuses 2 diff from your spirit's touch roll,
okay.
because it's been separated from the building, which it often like muddles with the impressions. Because
Alright.
a building like as a whole is that would normally if you touch the building, it'll give you you get the impressions of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a chunk of wood associated with a chunk of masonry that was associated with a specific event
Mm-hmm.
that happened only a few days ago. The difficulty is very low for this.
Okay. So,
It's difficulty 4 roll.
I will spend another point of willpower.
Yep.
And is it alright? Can you activate? Can you use Auspex powers? It's not necessarily a merit, but you use like Auspex 1 to like heighten your sense of touch?
Um, for Auspex 2, you can. For Auspex 3, I'm not. I would say because this is not about the physical sensation of touching it.
Okay.
This is literally you are building a supernatural bridge between this thing, but you
Okay.
need contact of it to do so.
Okay.
Uh, rather than it's not like perceiving the details of auras that are now made visible to you,
Okay.
which is still, you can perceive the auras, but you still need physical sight to perceive the details. Uh,
What about sight?
um, yeah. It wouldn't really help you here because you're going to be receiving a vision in your mind.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, Spirit's Touch can't really be edited with Allspecs 1, unfortunately.
All right. So that's 60-10 for me.
60-10, diff 4.
Yes, spending point of willpower. Let us rock.
Ah,
That's fine.
that's unfortunate. That's
It
three
is.
successes.
Yeah.
You
So
can
it's
always
pretty.
try again at +2 difficulty until you hit 10. But with yeah, 3 successes. Let's see what you get from this. So you get some fairly information about the last owner, but not really the owner in this case because it's not owned by anyone. This is detritus. This is effectively garbage, litter.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very strong impressions associated with how it became that. You definitely feel the sensation of massive amounts of force being applied to the wall this thing flew off of.
Mm-hmm.
You literally see what appears to be a humanoid shape, kind of a blur at how fast it moves, just literally throwing itself through the wall. It's
Mm-hmm.
very fleeting, um, but the figure appears very large um, and very malformed, despite looking humanoid. They look wrong. There's something wrong with them. Uh, you see you don't really see much else.
Okay.
You see basically a humanoid malformed figure flying through this wall. Um, the background being something of a blur, but you swear you could make out other humanoid shapes in the picture. This definitely occurred in the alleyway. It
Mm-hmm.
appears the rumors about someone going through this wall with force is true.
Okay.
And you can kind of hear just these massive sound, like the just kind of bang crack of just rock just being shattered as it does so. This is obviously not natural.
Mm-hmm. Um. Actually, do I get impressions of who was standing here?
Um, Not really. This is kind of it's almost like tracing the past of what happened, but there aren't really any strong impressions of these people. Only that when this impression was made, other people were around. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't really get too much information about those people. Their faces, their height, their forms are somewhat blurred. The background in general is blurred. It's really only the wall of the building which is really distinct, and the individual that went through it.
Based off of the how much time has passed?
A few days. But no, probably about
No.
probably. Let me check specifically for you.
Okay.
Um, nope, wrong thing. Yeah, it's been a few weeks now. It's been about 2.5 weeks. So I said it's only been a few days ago. It's actually been 2.5 weeks.
Okay. Fair enough.
But I mean, that's not a long time for Spirit's Touch. That's still fine. It's still relatively fresh.
Uh, no, I'm sort of another question. How long has Hakeem like been in like this pseudo prayer thing that
It
he's
doesn't last very long.
okay?
Um, it lasts about half a minute at most.
All right. Based off of the previous investigation, can I try again?
Yeah, you can put it at diff 6 and spend another willpower if you want. I mean, you don't need the willpower to get it. It will be +2 diff because you're basically trying to force it to come into focus at this point.
All right, I'm down.
Um, but yeah, do you spend another willpower or just leave it as is?
I spend another willpower. That's two for
Okay,
this scene.
that's
Um.
yeah.
Actually, question.
Oh no,
Um.
didn't you spend the first Spirit's Touch as well though?
Oh, the first spirit's touch.
I think you did. I think this will be your third willpower point for this
Yeah,
scene
it's
because you
my
spent
third.
for the investigation and the
Oh
first spirit's
shit,
touch.
I'm being froggy. Let's
That's
let's.
okay though.
It's not okay because
You're gonna get one back on that floor.
um
But you must know the
I I,
science
I
must
sort of
know.
I kind of have to know, but if it's getting, hold on.
It's diff 6. It's still very doable.
Uh,
You should average at least 2 successes.
yeah,
With
at least.
willpower at least 3. You just need to get lucky basically. Not roll 2 ones.
No, that was just unfortunate. What is my willpower? Okay. Um, do I get a willpower back for my perfectionist nature?
Um if you get like 4+ successes on the roll, yeah, you'll get it back after the scene.
Goodness.
You
So
get
this will
2
be
willpower back for playing on nature, 1 back for playing on demeanor.
alright then. So I will try again.
Yeah.
And no whammy, no whammies. Stop. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that gets you enough successes for willpower expenditure. Okay. Okay, so a creature known as Dagon went through this wall. He looks horribly ugly, and you're pretty sure he's a Nosferatu, judged by his appearance.
Yes. Investigation hole.
Like he's horribly ugly. And you get I'll say you get a little bit more.
Okay.
This Dagon was not growing through the wall in a stable state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
They looked rabid and bestial as they did so.
Oh, frenzy. Oh, no. Okay.
And they seem to do so in response. And interestingly, what you see is you don't actually see anything. It's more like you feel Dagon go through the wall. Like something happened because there's only blackness. It's only once they crash through the wall that they can see again. Like literally, they're in the. It's like you can't see anything. It's impenetrable blackness until they get through the wall, and then they stop, and that's where the vision ends.
Can I get a canine one?
Yes.
Because this added something to the mix.
There are 2 significant clues here that would enable you to make a law check.
Not spending willpower.
Is the blackness, the 2 is the frenzy.
Uh,
Okay, with that many successes, you don't have that much information to work off of. You think it might be an application of Obtenebration. But it's hard to say. He might have just been blinded for a short time. It does, senses can be overstimulated. I mean, but impenetrable blackness in a state of frenzy. At least, you think it's frenzy, but you're pretty sure it's frenzy. Like that, they're straight up running through a wall in a bestial state. You'll give it 1, 2 for free, but yeah, seems like it. It seems to make sense. You are aware that obtenebration can incite frenzy in the inexperienced or in the unexperienced. Those who are used to the power, don't really suffer from it that much. But those who see it for the first time, there's something wrong with it, and people often panic. Mortals are terrified of stuff like this. Inexperienced Canaanites are kind of like mortals. They basically respond like mortals in that regard.
Hakeem will finish his prayer and get up and roll up his mat and go. And he will pay the guard, I guess 1 piece, like 1 gold piece for his time.
I'll have this guard roll his conscience. Yeah, he gets a 9. Okay. He'll politely refuse you. He says like you're trying to do this place of service, and you know he could never accept a coin from a pious man.
He gives him a deep bow of gratitude. He'll ask, do you have a family?
Yes, I do. He seems a little bit confused.
I in order to help and support other things, I do help with goods and services. So if your family should need something, please, I owe you. Please come.
Oh, of course.
I will see that you're taken care of quite well.
Uh, Thank you, sir.
You'll smile.
He doesn't really say anything about his family. He just says thanks. Like there's obviously something there, something like.
Actually, he'll push it.
Okay.
Uh, is everything okay?
No, it's the offers are quite fine. So it's just.
No, I mean, are they afflicted? Is everything okay? Like, it's genuine concern at this point. He's trying to make conversation, but if he's not with the conversation, he'll leave it.
My brother died a fortnight ago.
I'm sorry.
I can only be grateful my wife and daughter are not so afflicted.
Then your wife and daughter should definitely have something to smile about.
Thank you, sir.
He'll smile. And yeah, he will. I'll just put in my blue booking. It doesn't have to actually be in the scene. And with that, yeah, I'm pretty much done.
You leave the area. Again, the hall is largely repaired at this point. It's just obviously they only do it during the day. They're not going to work through the night to do it. Yeah, you're able to exit the area with no problems. And perhaps time shall begin to move again as we leave the bazaar. And if there is nothing Hakeem wishes to further indulge in, I believe we can end our scene there. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching, and we'll see you all next time.